Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabados of Delmar, and together with my co-host Mark Kronich at Statewide News Service and jbiztechvalley.com.
Yeah, Rabbi, we have a lot of leaders of the arts community on this show a lot of time. We had Marsha White from SPAC, we had Bob Elba from the Times Union Center. Now I'm very pleased to say that we have the head of the Egg, the executive director of the Egg, Peter Lesser, with us today. And it's a real honor and a privilege to have you on the show.
Well,
it really is.
Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
I've been a real fan of the Egg as an institution for many years, and I was just telling you my first interview that I ever did was at the opening of the ribbon cutting of the Egg in March of 1978, and my first interview was with Nelson Rockefeller, who was there with Kitty Carlisle Hart. So it has very special meaning for me when I look at that.
Peter,
bowl.
you weren't here, but you'll give a little history of the Egg. I mean, it's such a funny shaped, I don't know if funny is the right word, but a different shape.
Unusual,
yes. Why they decided that way instead of a regular theater?
Well, I think it's more of a legend than anybody knows the true story, but we'll go with the legend because that's all we have. As many of you know who have seen the Empire State Plaza, there are 5 buildings that are very tall and very straight and very rectangular, and supposedly Governor Nelson A. Rockefeller at the time, who was the mastermind of this, was having breakfast with Wallace Harrison, who was the architect. And they're having breakfast. He said, we've got all these buildings going up and down. Why don't we make something a little different? And he looked down at his table and saw his coffee cup there, and he took his grapefruit and put it on top of the coffee cup and said, build me something that looks like that.
That's a legend, or
That,
we have to go with
that's
it over
the
here.
story that's told, so we go with it.
So they don't call it a grapefruit, they call it the
That's
Egg.
right. Well, how it got the nickname of the Egg, I think is somewhat obvious, but I'm not sure how that actually ended up starting and how it ended up sticking. But really, one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that originally the Egg wasn't designed to be a performing arts center. It was going to be where the joint sessions of the legislature met. And for reasons unbeknownst to me, midstream they decided that they didn't need that after all. And they said, well, now what do we do with this? And someone said, how about a performing arts center? But part of that is, the shape already was designed, and the idea was there. I don't believe the top was yet on, but then they had to build all of the fly floor and all of the theatrical systems and sort of
Retrofit it to what you want.
shoehorn them in to some degree because it wasn't a part of the original design.
Well,
and that's one of the reasons I think it took 12 years to complete. It was started in '66 and you were at the ribbon cutting at '78, so it was hopefully worth the wait.
Because because it's round, are the acoustics better? I mean, I don't know anything about
No,
sound. I'm just asking about
the
that.
roundness has nothing to do with the acoustics, I don't believe. What it does, well, it depends on what you're defining of good acoustics are. It's it was originally designed for speaking, and it works really well for that. We have basically 2 amphitheater-style stages. One has 440 seats, originally was 500, and one is 980, originally 1,000, just due to some modifications. And so anyway, they work really well for that. As far as acoustics, as far as like a concert hall acoustics, they don't have very remarkable acoustics. However, with the right sound system and a well-designed sound system, which we're lucky enough to have in both rooms, it works for just about everything.
Well, a couple of things. One is your previous job before you came to the Egg was at the Troy Music Hall.
That's correct.
That's phenomenal acoustics.
Yeah, and
that's perfect. So when you come from there to the Egg, nothing would equal the Troy
Right, and
Music Hall.
It's just really a totally different type of thing. Like the Troy Savings Bank Music Hall, you're right, it's world-renowned for its natural acoustics, which means you could listen to a string quartet or a string orchestra, and it's like being in acoustic heaven.
Right.
On the flip side, though, the problem that we always had there, and they continue to try to address, is when you start to amplify in a space like that, because the acoustics are what you would say reverberant, which means that there's a lot of natural reverb, then it can start working against you. On the flip side, at the Egg, hearing a string quartet is unremarkable because it's what we call a very dry room, so it doesn't resonate at all. But again, we have a blues rock band in there, and we can have amplification, and it takes really well to it. So we're lucky to have both venues in our community, actually.
Now, on your website for the egg, it says the walls are Swiss pear wood veneer.
It's true.
Now, I also, and I also, another folklore, another legend, is that the egg, there's only one other version of this structure, and that, I think, is in like Norway or Sweden.
I mean, the roundness
The
of it, you're
roundness and
asking?
the actual structure of it was from Norway or Sweden, and it's the only other place in the world that there's a structure like that. But there's only two, and that's what I've been told from
Yeah,
day one.
I'm not
so-
familiar with that. There has been, and this is very recently, they built a round concert hall, more of an oblong, and it looks a lot more like an egg, and they call it the egg in China.
China.
And there is an egg in China as well. I'm not familiar with this one.
Now, there are virtually no straight lines or harsh corners inside the egg. It's all, the walls
Yeah.
along the edge curve upward to meet gently concave ceiling light for celestial effect.
Exactly. In all of the public spaces, that's true.
Okay.
And even a couple of the elevators around just to
Yeah,
keep
that's
with
right.
the system. So it is unusual in that way. If you look at photos, or if you come obviously live to our lobby outside the Kitty Carlisle Hart Theater, you'll see that too. It's a arc-shaped room.
And the walls on the outside are the same wall that you see on the inside.
To some degree, that's true.
And
yes.
I've wanted to always climb up.
Yeah,
Has anyone ever climbed up? I got about halfway one time, but
Mark, you're not a kid over
I
here.
like climbing.
Yeah.
Another
Yeah.
thing with the history, why is it called the Kitty Carlisle? What is the connection to her that
Sure.
she has a
Oh.
whole hall named after her?
Wow.
Yeah, well, originally, the theaters weren't named anything except really the large theater and the studio
Small
theater. And then I believe it was in the late 80s, they decided that they would name the theaters. The Kitty Carlisle Hart Theater, as
Well,
you said, is our larger.
She was the head of the Council on the Arts.
Right.
And she has a long history in theater. She was in a Marx Brothers movie, and she was also always pitching for the arts in New York State. She would bring up Tony Randall and other stars to lobby for a lobby day that we don't really have anymore at this point.
Yes.
But I remember all those stars that she brought up, at pictures taken with them, and I mean, it was just amazing what you would
Yeah.
have up here. And then, of course, you had a Senator Roy Goodman from Manhattan, who was always a big pal of Kitty Carlisle Hart, and it was just, the Republicans in the Senate really supported it.
Yeah.
As, the funding for the egg, and it was all Kitty that really moved it along. So I think that's a big reason why she was chosen, because she was the mistress of ceremonies at the ribbon cutting, and she was there all the way
She was
through.
an advocate for
She was
the
there all the
arts.
way through. Never, that's where her passion, her heart is. But the other theater is named after a Jewish guy named Lou Swire. It was the Jewish View. We got to bring this in.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
Lou
and-
Swire.
Yeah, and Lewis has more of a, and not that that Kitty Carlisle Hart didn't have somewhat, but she was really a New York City gal. But like you said, she was head of the Council of the Arts when the egg was being envisioned and as a performing arts center. So, they decided that they would name that theater after her. And then Lou Swire is just a great arts advocate. And he's just, there's a building named after him at the Saratoga Performing Arts Center as well.
Right.
And again, so that's where the local connections. Now we have the Lewis Swire Theater and the Kitty Carlisle Hart.
And Ed Swire is his brother? I
Ed
believe?
Swire is his son.
Son.
Yeah.
Okay. Because Ed Swire owns Stuyvesant Plaza. I
Right.
should
Oh,
let you
And,
know.
and is also, was on our board for many years
Oh,
and is
okay.
also continues to support us very generously.
That's right. Okay, so let's get on with the funding. What's your budget? Since you're talking
You have
about
to talk money
support,
over here.
What's your budget right now these days?
Our annual budget runs anywhere from $1.5 to $2 million, depending
Okay.
on the year. I mean, and that is, it just varies due to programming, it due to what type of outside funding that we have, what type of projects that we have. So on the average, about, like I said, 1.7, 1.8 million
And how
That's
much
for
total.
that's for the performers also. That's included everything. How much you have to pay for a performer?
Exactly, yeah, that's our total budget, overall
And
budget.
that's what it was in 2010, 2011, was 2 million.
Yes.
So it had, in 5 years, it really hasn't
Yeah, we
moved.
went down a little bit right around, just past that time, and now we're back up a little bit as well.
So how much of that is from the state budget?
The state budget, it's about 10%.
That's it.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
At
telling
what?
you, that's,
Yeah, I mean originally the funding was a lot higher,
Right.
And then quite a bit higher actually.
That's right.
But over the years, due to various reasons, they've had to cut back or they've wanted to cut
Is that
back.
across the board, Mark? Again, Mark's a report on the rabbi. I'm just saying, is that across, is that
No, this
specifically
is,
for
I
the
mean,
egg or
they
it's
did the same
across?
thing with the State University of New York. That's why when you see University at Albany in big letters,
Yeah.
and you see State University of New York in very small letters, because there's only 15% of the University at Albany budget is state money. The 85% is from private funds. So sending a message that the fewer dollars coming from the state, the smaller the letters are going to be that say
Right.
State University
Right.
of New York. And
Right.
but you're doing you have everyone is out there with their hands out asking for money for the arts, and the state really should be supporting this more. I mean, how do you find another Roy Goodman or find someone in the legislature who could really be that advocate?
Well, you continue to just try to do a good job and try to get people's attention. And then, by design, you also look for alternate sources of revenue.
Is that your job to look for like loose wires? I mean, I know he passed away, but people in the community that'll support you,
Sure.
and that's your job really a lot.
Yeah. I mean, there's various. I mean, most of our revenue is from what we call earned revenue, which is from ticket sales. Which is from, we also sublet the theaters and the meeting spaces to other organizations, and we're able to gain some revenue through that as well. We should not, and it wouldn't be fair for us to say what we do get the amount, although it may seem smaller than you think it should be, of course, but it's still generous. And also, we also get, some great support and maintenance support. So it should be clear that our organization is a not-for-profit organization. That was formed specifically to manage the performing arts spaces at the Egg, but the building itself is owned by New York State, and we in turn we pay the Office of General Services a annual maintenance fee, and they take care of things for us.
And how much is that, the annual maintenance fee to the state?
It's just over $100,000 that we pay them.
Over 100,000.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you could get that reduced. If the state's reducing your income, maybe what you pay out to the state
Well,
should be reduced
you know,
also.
One hand doesn't feed the other.
I like the way you think, Mark, but as it would have it, actually, that amount has been going up. But of course, their cost for doing business is going up as well. And at the end of the day, what it does is it, encourages us to find alternate sources of income, to be, more
creative.
Inventive and creative.
But you don't have a development. You have 11 staff members, and you don't have a development director.
Yes, that's part of my job.
That's part of your
Development and
job.
marketing and programming is pretty much the things that I take care of.
Okay. Well,
Is it
Yeah.
difficult though? I mean, because like Mark said at the beginning, we have many people in charge, executive directors of many of the arts. But really, like you're saying, you have a fairly small hall, 1,500 compared to maybe Proctor's or surely the Times Union.
Sure.
Does that get difficult to bring in the 5-star acts?
Well, we bring in 5-star acts. They're just not. You probably haven't heard of them yet. But yeah, obviously, I mean, it's everything's based on business, and the type of artists that perform for us are artists that are typically emerging, or sometimes maybe they did play at SPAC at one point, and now they're at a point in their career where they can play for a more intimate audience. So obviously, you go with the size that you have, and again, we're lucky to have various size venues in the capital region.
Did I read this right, that you had some sort of Beatle retrospective for their 50th anniversary?
Yeah, one of the programs that we do, in addition to just presenting the dance and music and family programming, is we have something called New York Living Legacy that we created several years ago. And it's, when I say sporadic, it's not a regular presentation, but we do it on occasion. And we've done things like celebrating the legacies of Leonard Bernstein or George Gershwin or Paul Taylor, the great choreographer, Martha Graham. We took a little different approach. Obviously, the Beatles are not from New York, but from England. But
But there is a Liverpool, New York. So.
but the historic arrival in February of '64 was a very New York event, and we thought that we would, because it was the 50th anniversary. And we happened to have an amazing band from New York that recreates Beatles music on stage. We put it all together. We're lucky to have a Beatles ethnomusicologist just a few miles down the road at Skidmore College, Gordon Thompson. And so what we do with these Living Legacy projects is we have concerts at the Egg, but they're supported by community outreach events. And Professor Thompson went out to various, mostly libraries, but some other community centers as well, and talked about, we put together a program talking about the Beatles' arrival in New York, what led up to that, the importance of it, why New York. It's a multimedia presentation. And it's a good way for us to get out into the community, people to get to know us, see the significance of New York and performing arts, and they come with our hope that then they will arrive at the Egg at the end of the week to see some live arts.
I have to tell you, talk about live art, and in 1980, there was the State Democratic Convention was held at the Egg. And I remember there was a U.S. Senate, primary. They had I think it was like John Lindsay and Bess Meyerson and 2 other people. They all got 25% of the vote, but it was everyone was running around like in the back rooms and stuff. I mean, if I learned the back rooms of the Egg based on that convention and where the phone booths were at the time and things like that. Sure. But But after that, there really hasn't been a state
Now, was that
convention.
at the Egg or the convention center itself?
No, that was at the Egg itself in one of the theaters.
Okay.
And then they, I guess it really blossomed after 1980, but no, in 90s they had it at the 92 they had it at the convention center.
It's
Yeah.
a
But I
small
think-
venue again. Can they fit 1,000?
Yeah, but the
Don't they
Democrats in
know
1980 were not a small group, but there's only so many conventioneers that are entitled to be there at the convention. So, what gives with not having more political? I mean, you have lobbyists have their receptions at the Egg in the lobby.
Yeah,
But
we do have
what's
some.
going on with the political side? Do you not want a political convention there? Is it too small?
Again, we're, our main focus is performing arts, so
Yeah.
we're not
Well,
going.
they're performers. If anything else, these politicians, they do perform.
Yes. So we're not actively seeking,
Different
seeking these types of events particularly, although we certainly welcome them and happy to. I mean, the governor does his budget address almost every year at the Egg, or
At the
governor.
convention center.
No, his budget
the budget
address is
address is
at
at
the
the
Hart
Egg,
Theater.
that's right. The budget address,
And
that's
Governor
right.
Cuomo and
Yes.
Governor Pataki also did it there. So, and they've done a lot of their award ceremonies and their economic development
That's right. And
projects
and
there.
the state of the state university.
That's
Nancy
right, and
Zimpher
actually in our
has a-
smaller theater. So it does get used for a lot of more official state business. But again, what our organization was specifically
Oh, I know,
created for was
I
for
know.
perforing arts. But again,
We were just
luckily,
talking. That's,
sure, yeah.
just-
But again, so to answer your question, why?
What do you, now looking to the future, what do you think is going to be the role of the Egg? I mean, the convention center is not in your purview, is that correct?
That's correct.
So what do you think the role of the Egg will be once that downtown convention center is built and they make the connections between the TU Center and the convention center?
Yeah.
Are you going to get more acts? Are you going to be able to see more revenue coming into the Egg?
Well, I think that's everybody's hope. It's preliminary now. There's a committee that's been formed that includes ourselves and representatives of the Empire State Convention Center, the current convention center, and the Times Union Center,
Right.
and the Albany County Convention and Visitors Bureau, and then of course the new convention center. And we just had our meeting a few weeks ago. We're having another one next week, and to talk about how we can make sure that it's easy for people who are planning an event to be able to use all the spaces if they need them. And it's really just expanding on what's happening already, because many times there's an Empire State Plaza convention and they're using our theaters, or they're using some of our display space or reception space. So I think this will just expand that a little bit, and I think it'll be a little bit more formalized, because they're obviously going to really be going out and looking for some larger conventions now that they have the space to do it.
And you have a 16-member board, is that right?
Yes, we get up to 16 members.
You have more board members than you have staff.
At this point, that's very true. I mean, we have a lot of staff that we call our per diem, so they're hired to work the performances, but the full-time staff is about 7.
And it's about 7?
Seven people.
Just
Seven.
maybe
I
at the
have 11
convention
here.
center,
It
can
says-
you,
Okay.
can you, like work off the convention center? Let's say someone's a convention center, You say, well, Saturday night, come for a performance, you know. I
We
mean,
do.
that kind of idea that, hey, you want some entertainment? So, they're having a
Right.
convention, some business. Hey, come on Saturday night, come on.
Exactly.
come on
We
over.
try to do that. What we find, though, is many of these conventions are really, really self-contained. Because we've tried that a few times. We had some what we thought were real ringers for that. Well, what we find is a lot of them, they plan out. They have a dinner, and then they have a reception,
every
and then they have
minute
their
is
own
planned.
concert. And sometimes it's hard to add on, but the hope is with this pre-planning, and there'll be enough notice that potentially we can
come on
drop
over,
something
you'll be
in
part of it.
that will
Yeah,
be
that's
mutually
smart.
beneficial. And they are looking at ways that they can
really,
do
I know
that.
we have people for the convention center, the county officials, and they are hoping to expand,
Mm-hmm.
not just for themselves, but the whole of Albany should
Exactly.
really benefit from
Mm-hmm.
it, not just one little containment. So that's what I'm thinking, that you can work
Yeah.
with them.
So,
That's
you're
certainly the
looking
hope.
at increased rental business from this new convention center?
That certainly the hope that there will be more opportunities and that they will need. And again,
But you're not budgeting for it just yet.
oh no, because they
No.
won't open for 2 years.
Oh, yes.
Exactly.
Okay.
And we'll again wait and see how that
not
goes. But
counting the
again,
chickens
I
in
think
the-
the main thing is that they're looking at it in a proactive way. They're not waiting until it's built and saying, now what do we do? Because now they have to start going after convention business now because a lot of people plan 2, 3, 4, 5
I'm trying
years
to put
down the
two and
road.
two together because I did go this past winter to the Andy Statman, very Jewish. Maybe it's good for everywhere, clarinet is. So just appreciate putting in some Jewish entertainment. I mean, even though it's universal, everybody would like him. But, and then we know that there's going to be a kosher restaurant or a kosher facility. So maybe a kosher facility, convention center, a little more Jewish entertainment. And the people in the Capital District, the Jewish people, but everybody will benefit also. So.
Definitely, yeah. And we try to be as diverse as we can and serve various people's interests. So.
Well, I know like through Brooklyn Day and I know a couple of other receptions, basically whoever is renting the hall calls up Kosher Price Chopper, gets some pre-made platters because they know the speaker of the assembly is going to be there.
Sure.
So they have kosher food, but there's really no other way of getting kosher food at the Egg or at the convention center,
Right.
which is an OGS operated facility. But I'm just saying that, there should be more of options
Sure.
in terms
Just
of
for
kosher
the
food.
logistics, what is it? How will it be? A block away? I'm just trying to think.
What, the
My-
convention
yeah,
center?
Yeah.
Oh,
how
yeah,
far?
it's just,
one block.
Yeah,
you
if
you
you
won't
go,
even know because there are paths.
They're gonna
that
make
they're
a
gonna
path
make
straight
two
there.
tunnels
Walkways,
that
yeah.
are walkways.
Oh, so
tunnels.
that makes it even easier.
So you don't
Yeah.
have to walk up the hill. You'll
I
just
didn't
go
know.
up to a certain level on the convention center, walk across, and then make a right
Yeah, I
right
know.
into the Egg.
Yeah.
So.
Excellent.
they're all right together.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, a block away. I knew
Yeah,
that
exactly. It's about
close.
2 blocks.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you? How has the organization evolved over the past 14 years? How have you seen it evolve?
Well, mainly the biggest change really is when I came on, and that was by design. We had a new chairman of the board who was very interested in seeing the Egg become more active. And as you said, I was at the music hall in Troy, and someone was keeping their eye on me over there, and they thought maybe that I can make a difference over at the Egg. And we really did. We did a strategic plan and met and talked about ways that we can support or find support from the local community, from Albany and Schenectady, Troy, Saratoga, and so forth, and then build on that. We also wanted to make sure that since we are getting state dollars, that we were not just serving the local area. And that we could expand. And one of the things that we've done is we are the administrative arm of what's called the New York State Presenters Network, which is a consortium of about 150 performing arts presenters across New York State. And we coordinate all the activities. We have a conference that we do in October. We've done some symposiums in the summer. We also administer a grant which provides funding to presenters who are bringing in New York State performing artists to perform in their venues. So we're very proud of that, and again, a way of using, leveraging the state money that we do get to serve as many artists and presenters throughout the state instead of, because that's, it's hard to attract, although we do certainly get audiences from pretty far away, but for the most part, we're serving the local community.
And it's sort of like the musical version or the performing arts version of Taste New York. I mean, now you have Perform New York, maybe. You can
Right,
label
exactly.
it somehow. But I want to just go over, because on your website it says that you have 6 genres that you that this theater is set up for, or
Mm-hmm.
that your mission is. It's comedy, dance, family, film, music, and theater.
Mm-hmm.
So, how much of those are not focused on as much, or how about children's performances? And what
Sure.
do you?
As it turns out, our main thrust is music.
Yeah.
The reason for that is because that's what people seem to like to go to the most. And there's so many different styles that can be, that work well in the size theaters that we have. So our music program is really the one that you'll see the most of. The second is dance. We're really one of the few upstate performing arts centers that still presents modern dance
And you're
on
the
a
home
regular
of the Ellen
basis.
Sinopoli Dance
Well,
Company.
yeah, we have a resident dance company. It's been there for many years,
Yes.
and family performances, and that's really what more encompasses our theater
Okay.
presentations.
So you don't do live theater, pretty much.
We really we've tried. We've taken a few stabs at it, and we just have found it very difficult to find success. I think part of the reason for that, well, I know part of the reason for that is there's not a lot of touring theater for small venues that is of the type of quality that we would feel that we'd
Well,
like to present.
If it was a joint session of the legislature at the Egg, like they originally thought, maybe you'd have political theater.
Well, that's true. And that's usually what's the most dramatic anyway.
That's right.
And then also, since we have, the Capitol Repertory Company and then some other, and many, many community theater companies too, there's just not a great demand for it. So we've done a few, we're open to it. We've had some good one-person performances that work really well for us. And the same thing with film. Again, the demand is there, but not so much for art film and that type of thing that would work for us, and others are doing it really well. So, we're always trying to find our niche. We're not trying to, compete, with others who are doing things really well. We want to find things that aren't happening and try to do them to the best of our abilities.
Are the board members more active now than, like you said, prior to your entry into this?
I wouldn't really know that since, again, they're more of a governing board. They're all, one very big difference for us as a performing arts center is our board members are all appointed by elected officials.
Yes.
As opposed to your regular nonprofit
Right.
performing arts centers, people who they like the theater, they like
Volunteer,
music,
yeah.
and they're coming on because of their love for what you're doing already.
Well-
Whereas ours they're politically appointed or appointed by elected officials. So they're there not as necessarily as a fundraising entity.
Really?
They're there really as an oversight to make sure that we are
'Cause the boards-
making good use of the money that's been provided by the state.
Because the boards that I've been part of have been part of the fundraising arm.
Right.
And,
No,
anyway,
absolutely, and it's been a struggle for us, and more now. And the governor's office, as they're appointing new members, there is more a sense of that they're trying to find people who have some experience with fundraising. So we've done a few very, very, very modest fundraisers in the past, and basically, like you said, to get our hand out there with the rest of them, but we know it takes some time and to find the philanthropic community.
Brian Petratus,
Yes.
he's the chair.
Yes, he's the chair.
And what's his background? Who is he?
Well, he's the chair. He's officially the acting chair, but he's been doing it for as long. The governor always appoints the chair, and the governor's appointment, unfortunately, was unable to remain.
Who was that?
His name is Neil Davidoff,
Okay.
and
He was local, from Albany.
oh yeah.
Yeah,
And he was actually a representative from the Office of General Services
Uh-huh.
before, and then he retired, and he was on our board as a liaison. And then when he retired, they invited him to be chair, and he was for a number of years, and then he found, due to some family commitments, that he needed to resign, and he even stayed for 2 years past the time he resigned, because the way you're appointed, even if you resign, you have to stay until another chairman is chosen.
Well, it's interesting because this chair, Brian Petratus, is the speaker's appointee.
Exactly. So he's always acted as the as the vice chair, or if you will.
Yeah.
And because of various circumstances, I believe this is his third or fourth time serving as acting chair because of the time. But I believe this is the longest. So we're hoping that the governor, they're taking their time, the governor's appointments office, but they'll find an active chair who's very enthusiastic about the egg and the arts.
Are there any openings, vacancies?
Yes, there are.
Because-
There's several vacancies still, yeah.
Okay, so the list that I have of the 16 board members, they might not be up to date. That's on your website?
That's correct. Well, they're up to date. It's just there are probably some vacancies, so there could be more board members.
Oh, I see. Okay,
Yeah.
so Tony Esposito is on your board?
Yes, it's a governor's
Okay,
appointee,
'cause
yes.
he was part of the, ran Capital Cablevision before
That's
it was
correct.
Time
Yeah.
Warner.
Mhm.
And he ran for state senate, and I know Tony very well.
Yes.
So he's a good addition,
Oh, yeah.
But he could go out there and do some good fundraising.
Oh,
for
yeah,
you.
no, he's been on the board, he's been on the board since,
long time.
1990 or before, I think, so.
So is the recession over for you? I mean, are you recovering
Well,
from
you
the
know,
recession?
my initial answer is, yes, I think it's more, the recession for us was a double blow because at the same time of the recession is when we got a very, very large cut funding from the state. And like I said, it takes, no matter what, it takes time to rewrite the ship, and you can't just, wake up one day and have your funding cut 70%, and the next day everything's okay.
Entertainment's probably one of the first things that people cut when it's a recession. I mean,
Yeah, people, and again, a lot of times that, and it's also, a lot of it is reaction as well. So you may not find it right away, and then it may take you a while to bounce back. But again, we changed the way that we approach certain things for practicalities purposes, for the amount of funding that we have too. So I think all of those things working together, the fact that people are more confident in the economy, and they're going out more, and that we found a different way
Well,
to do
Peter,
business.
we'll end up on a good note, and
Yes,
we want to give you a
yes.
blessing that
thank
you
you.
should grow and to be prosperous and expand and something, a real jewel in the Capital District. For the small community that Albany is, we have so many great venues that really rival bigger cities, and you're one of them in the egg, and therefore we want to wish you much success in whatever you're doing in expansion and growing, and do it with good health.
All the best, yes.
Thank you very much.